Hey guys, I'm Fancy.
And I'm Colleen.
And this is Murder by Design.
Welcome back to our channel, friends. Tonight is the last episode in our mini-series on the disappearance and suspected murder of Alissa Turney. Last time we talked about her home life, her father's arrest for a 96-page manifesto and an outrageous amount of illegal dangerous weapons, and even looked at the possibility of a serial killer being responsible. But tonight, we're going to dive more into the struggle Alissa's sister Sarah had to deal with the police and what she's doing now to try to get justice for Alissa.
This case.
Jack in the box.
You got me in trouble, Dad.
How'd I do that?
Cause that freaking asshole Mike, he looks and he goes, "That's illegal. He can't do that." And I was like, "That's my dad." Still, there's signs posted all in the office. I was like my dad's gonna do anything. I was like, it's my first job. My dad's video cameraing me. He's like, "So that's illegal. Tell him not to do that." I was like, he's a prick. Hate that guy.
Which one's Mike? The one I was talking to you?
No, the one, I don't know, the one that drives that nice ass Mustang. Let me drive.
Which one's Mike? What do we do?
Well, last week we left off with Michael Turney's 96-page diary of a madman martyr manifesto. And when the cops searched the house, they were looking for evidence in Alissa's disappearance after self-proclaimed serial killer Thomas Heimer falsely confesses to Alissa's murder. What they found shocked everyone. As you remember, there were 19 high-caliber assault rifles, illegal silences, knives, magazines, and 26 homemade pipe bombs, as well as a van filled with gasoline. But I bet you're wondering what happened after this raid. Tonight, that's exactly what we'll be discussing, along with why Turney has been successful in evading prosecution in Alissa's disappearance and how the family is doing now.
Honestly, it's just so lucky that that serial killer
Right.
decided to false confess to Alissa, because otherwise, they would have not have found the pipe bombs. And like we said last episode, the meeting for the union was in 4 days. So,
Right.
I mean, they potentially stopped him from murdering dozens of people
Yeah.
in a very highly explosive, damaging way to die. And I
Right.
mean, if you can imagine, this would be very much similar to like the Oklahoma City bombing or the
Mhm.
1990 bombing in the World Trade Center. You know,
Right.
because those are, you know, in Oklahoma City, I mean, there were a lot of explosions and a lot of people died. Or there was, I think the guy who did that one also helped plant bombs in many other areas of the country, and they were like looking for him for a long time.
Yeah.
And eventually got him down. But, you know,
I mean, this is even as big as what like Kaczynski did.
yes.
Like this is like that level of freaking destruction.
Right. This would be, you know, documentary made, major news for weeks. It would have been like, oh my God, there was a dude who was planting bombs in police unions. Oh my God, he would have been nonstop news coverage on Fox and CNN for weeks.
Oh God, yeah. Weeks.
And so
I can't even believe this.
Right. This is something that this case is not well known. And it's an insane amount of weapons and explosives to have on hand to plan to actually kill people. And in such a horrific way. When there are explosions, people get blown up, there are body parts everywhere. You know, I read after the World Trade Center, like they were still finding body parts in different office buildings for years. And that's horrifying and really disturbing. And so just imagine, you know, that happening to your family and loved ones, and, you know, somebody finds their finger, you know, a year later. Like, how heart damaging is that? And, you know, the police, that is a major part of the community. There are so many people impacted. The people in the community would be impacted because half the police force would probably be killed, or at least out of commission because they're dealing with the grieving loss of half the police force.
Not to mention all the non-fatalities, but at least injured people, you know, I mean, this would have been catastrophic.
Yes.
You know, and I think about in terms of what's happening today with the police force and how hard it is for them. Can you imagine if an entire police force like this was taken out, like just bam, gone in a highly and I'll be honest, I lived in Phoenix. Phoenix is a highly dangerous area. Like
it's on the border.
There are beautiful parts of Phoenix. Don't get me wrong. There's gorgeous parts of Arizona altogether. I mean, I think Tucson's really beautiful. There's beautiful parts, but Phoenix is like the wild west, dude. It is scary. It is.
Well, right. It's on the border, and there's a big issue of drug trafficking.
Yes.
What was the book? Crank by Ellen Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
Like the girl goes to Phoenix to stay with her dad and becomes addicted to drugs. Like it's a
there's a huge problem. Huge problem.
And so just imagine if the entire police force gets wiped out or injured and is unable to work. It'd be a drug trafficking city. Be like, ho, bring it in quick.
Yeah, hurry. Right. They're not, while they're looking the other way. Hurry. Yeah, I mean, it would be bad. It would just have been bad.
And then think of the civilians who would be killed, you know, because there are people who are in those buildings who have nothing to do with that.
Right.
And have.
Right. And if it was like annexes or anything like that, and they're in like a, you know, a more like a strip mall kind of thing or a building or whatever, could you imagine?
Civilians, you know, children, and then, you know, if you blow something up, like the debris goes everywhere. So think if, you know, across the street there's, you know, a school or a restaurant or a park,
playground, or a park, or because these places are not remote. I mean, they're in populated areas. That the police station is in a populated area.
Right. So then he was planning to shoot anybody who makes it out. So like think, you know, he could potentially be shooting children, moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, pretty much anybody is free game in that. And so just imagine hundreds and hundreds of people in a community dying horrifically because this guy is a freaking insane psycho.
God. And then just, I don't know.
To get away with it just drives me nuts.
Well, I mean, he didn't get away with that part, but to get away with Alyssa's murder, yeah, absolutely. Well, Michael Turney was arrested in 2008 following the raid. No shit, really. And the police were hoping to find surveillance tape footage on Alissa that Turney had previously refused to turn over. Instead, they found the making of a domestic terrorist complete with a crazy manifesto. So Sarah shares a portion of one of the several manifestos in her Patreon account for Voices for Justice, and I'd like to read a bit of it. So this one is actually a 71-page document, and it's titled something completely different, but it's one of the many manifestos that was in the house. So there were several, not just the 96-page one, there were others. And this one is called The Diary of a Madman, Lost in an Obsession for Justice and Closure. And Alissa is frequently referenced in this document. On page 22, Mike writes the following: "To me, Alissa was a most enjoyable person and exactly what I needed to help me not dwell on my depression. She always admitted her mistakes, cried, and asked me to help her not be so stupid. She literally woke up in a new world every day with hope and aspirations of having a good day. Few days passed where she was not misguided into endangering herself for the entertainment of a neighborhood kid. The way she would crawl up in my lap to tell me how stupidly she acted was all I needed to forgive, and never stop trying to teach her how to protect herself. The day she was solicited to wrestle a boy at the Desert Sky Middle School by a male coach without safety equipment and hurt her private parts was something only a parent would understand. She truly did not expect the boy to throw her to the ground and fall on top of her, groping her breasts and vaginal areas. She said her breast and vaginal area were so sore and still hurt. She made me promise not to tell anyone and refused to see a doctor, expressing her embarrassment because she did not understand what would happen when she wrestled a boy. She thought the boy would stand up and wrestle like she had done on campus or the neighborhood with boys on the street. She was crying as she asked me to help her not to do something so stupid again. We had dealt with something similar when I rescued her from a neighbor's house where 4 boys had tied her to a bed without clothing, and decided not to report this to the police and or CPS for fear our family would be punished by the girls being taken away. Mike then talks about how the IBEW was terrorizing his family and he had to monitor them to keep them safe. He writes on page 23, Alissa began to resent my scrutinizing her activities as I suspected she would. Mike continues, although Alissa was always told the truth when CPS questioned her, she believed her brother John was getting me to change my denials to him with CPS. She began threatening to call CPS, and when I asked for what, she replied, because the house is not clean or you only fix soup from a can for dinner. She wanted me to let her spend the night with a male friend who had shared his bong, pipe, and marijuana with her. I had previously attempted to turn in this boy's father for dealing in crystal meth. However, as usual, the cactus sub of the PPD had labeled me a vigilante, therefore did nothing. When she brought up accusing me of inappropriate sexual behavior, I handed her the phone while dialing CPS. I told her she would be made to take a physical examination. This was enough to get her to decide to not make any false allegations against me. As always, she would ask me to forgive her. Her friend's parents would ask me to forgive her, asking why I did not punish her by hitting her as she witnessed her friend's parents to do to their misbehaved child. From time to time, I would allow her to stay with her brothers to give Sarah, and I time apart. And Alissa wanted to strike out in the world, as friends of hers had told her she could emancipate from a parent at any age if the parent would sign the papers. My calls to CPS about what was going on did afford me some answers to my surprise, though the fake numbers CPS gave me for groups we met to talk about children making threats to state agencies to manipulate a parent into letting them do what they wanted proved fruitless. Most had shut down due to quote unquote funding. Oh my God.
There's so much ridiculous in that. The fact that, if she's at school and she starts wrestling a boy, I mean, she's in middle school, she knows what to do and what not to do. And if a boy would start to grope her and touch her inappropriately, yeah, they would have punished him, and he most likely would have been suspended or expelled, and the police would have been called on him because it's being witnessed. And then to say that she was, taken by a group of boys and tied up naked to a bed, and you don't call the police?
You didn't call it. Oh, get the hell out of here with that. Okay, so wait, it goes on. It gets better, guys. So this is where he talks about ending his life and everything. So among with such virtue in a society that loathes the messenger of the truth, I have decided to end the lives of the people I believe contributed to her death, including my own. The death of Lyle is nothing less than pure revenge for my sister, who he could have saved had he taken her to get the medical treatment she needed to live, and his destroying her 2 sons, David and Jeff. Please do not become an activist, as this nation's people hold their hate for truth second only to the person who brought the message. I have tried to indoctrinate you that a 4-year college degree must be foremost and the platform you will launch the remainder of your life for. It will open the door where doors would be closed without it, so you can have better choices in life, and we know it in America. A formal education is the only form of freedom and independence for less affluent citizens in a very biased and prejudiced society like America. I love you so much. It has been you and you alone why I have waited so long to engage my final actions. I'm assuming he must be talking to Sarah here. Alas, there is no good time to do evil as means to an end. There is no peaceful means to an end, as the judicial system has failed to provide a level playing field so our family can have a peaceful closure. It is as much my fault as it is the system. It is my sole responsibility to do what must be done. I hope one day you see it as a necessary sacrifice for the personal needs of our family who loved Alissa. Alissa did not willingly abandon you any more than did your mother. Though you may miss me, I hope my efforts to have you hate or dislike me lessen your pain, as this was the hardest of all deeds I had to accomplish. It was not done because I no longer loved you, but because I love you so much that you deserve a quick and final separation from me. This too shall pass, and the storm clouds will clear for you to enjoy a positive, clean, refreshing morning without the burden of a sick parent and lost loved ones. My death will end that, as all debts are paid with death. What the ever-loving hell? Like,
All
to
right,
lay
David
that,
Koresh.
like to lay that on your kid like that?
Seriously, it's so similar to David Koresh. He was the guy at Waco. Like,
Yeah.
so similar. Like, I am the messenger of truth. Okay, Jonestown. What is
Right?
happening?
Like, are you drinking Kool-Aid? What the hell is going on here?
Like,
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, Sarah. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, Sarah.
right? Like, you will be a quick separation, but then you will be free. No, you just killed like 50 plus people. How much
Plus
guilt you
you.
just laid that?
Plus you, and you still didn't actually, take responsibility for my sister's death, you fucktard.
Like,
Ugh,
seriously.
man.
Seriously.
Like,
So
that's just part of the manifesto. Oh my God, I've read the rest. It's not any better. It's terrible.
Right. It's mostly just a lot of,
Rambling from a crazy man.
Right. Like, try to be guilty, but saying so many different lies and misstatements, but trying to justify what he's going to do. Like, there is no justifying what he was going to do.
No.
Okay, so what bothers me is that all those different pipe bombs and the gasoline and the manifesto, that he only gets sentenced.
Manifestos.
Yeah. He only gets sentenced to 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years.
Well, because they stopped him before he actually did anything. So he gets, but
it's not enough. And so the law enforcement told Sarah that they intended to prosecute him with Alissa's disappearance and murder when he was done serving his time, as they didn't want to somehow mess up that charge, which in no way makes sense to me. So that
doesn't make sense to me either.
Right, because that would be the time you have all the evidence of that you present the evidence of that, most likely would have gotten convicted and sentenced totally just for life in general, instead of waiting to try him later, which it just doesn't make any sense. And in our extended interview inside of our Patreon account, Sarah talks this all about what the police had told her.
Oh, geez. And she tells us a lot, guys. As we just said, the police told Sarah that they didn't want to prosecute until after her father was released, so he couldn't combine sentences. But it does happen. People serve their lesser charges concurrently, but the higher sentence would take the lead. And if they were able to prosecute and convict on murder, then who cares about a 10-year sentence for weapons?
Right, people get charged,
seriously.
They get charged with, life in prison without parole plus 50 years. All the time. There are some people who are in prison, for life in prison, no parole, plus 300 years, depending on what they did.
Well, even like Nicholas Godejohn. Yes, he's serving life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. Do you know that he has an additional 25 years in there because of some sort of weapons and an aggravated assault? No, nobody, but it's still there. It's meant to be. So what that is when they do that, when they combine sentences like that and they do it that way, you'd think, oh, why do they do that additional 50 years? Or why do they do, well, there's a reason. One of the reasons is that, so if you are able to somehow get parole or come up for parole,
Appeal.
yeah, or an appeal or any of those things, those 50 extra years though makes it longer before you can even get to the appeal. Like, or to the, I'm sorry, to parole. So
Yep.
if a life sentence, you would get it at such and such a point in time, that extra 50 years actually takes it out many more years before you're even allowed to start to ask for parole. So that's why they'll do that, and add that on, because it adds many, many, many years.
Right. It's a security measure.
It's a security measure.
So like, especially for people who are very violent, most people do not change. Even if you're in prison for 40 years, when you get out, you're still going to want to kill people. Or it happens a lot with like pedophiles. As soon as they get out, they will go and molest children again. And so that's why
can't stop.
Right. So for them, it's like that weird, horrible addiction. And so by adding those sentences, because a lot of people, like, there is a lot of without parole, but there are also a lot of cases that don't say that. So you can get life in prison, but with the possibility of parole after 25 or 30 years. And so, but if you add, life in prison, minimum sentence of 30 years plus 25 years, well, those 25 years, you have to then wait, 80% before you can get parole for that charge. So it keeps them in prison longer.
Well, in some places, 25 years is considered the life sentence.
Yeah.
So then that's what they'll add those on. And like Colleen said, in a lot of places, you only have to serve 80% of your term or whatever in a life in any sentence. It depends on where you are. Some places it's 100%. Some places it's like 60%. Some places it's 80%. So that's why they do this, because that extra charge makes it longer, before you can even come up for that. So that's why they'll do that. But anyway, they decide, they're not going to do this. So Sarah then was contacted 2 weeks before her father was released and told that the detectives on the case were being reassigned. And this is not the first time they've been reassigned. This has been reassigned over and over and over again, and is still continuing to happen. And it's basically any time the police get kind of closer to making some sort of real effort in the case, somebody is gone. And it's totally freaking weird. So the woman she meets introduces herself as the commander of the unit, and yet a few months later, she's gone. And so throughout the whole investigation, they just keep reassigning and shuffling this case. And that's why there's nothing happening, because it just, every time you add a new investigator, it starts all over again, because that investigator has to get all caught up on everything. And it's just a nightmare.
And, having to read all those different manifestos and the previous charges and the accusations that he's made in the CPS reports, you got decades of evidence that you have to go through, and it takes time, because it's not like they only get one case. They're covering a multitude of cases, and some are more priority than this, especially he's been in prison for years. So he takes the backseat to the people who are not in prison, and then, they get reassigned and whatever. And so, he is just, in weird limbo, but there's no justice for Alissa. And so what they do is they tell Sarah to go out and get media attention, and she does. But, what? That's your response? Well, just get the media.
Get the media involved. Right. Like, I don't even understand why you would say that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but she does, and she gets lots of it. So I don't know why they would give her that advice, but nothing in this case makes any sense anyway. So, hey, why not? Go get a media attention. But Sarah asked the officers what it would take, and they say evidence. Folks, there is so much evidence in this case, circumstantial, but as we have discussed before, 90% of all evidence is circumstantial. So, I mean, seriously, I've seen people convicted on way, way, way less. Way less.
And I think the issue is that those bomb charges have weight to them. That shows that he is violent and has the ability to plan for things in advance. And
exactly.
He writes about, Alyssa's, behavior, but in the wrong sense. And he admits to not, bringing charges against people for hurting her. And it's really, he's projecting, I believe. And so there's so much circumstantial evidence. And so to me, it's like the police don't want to look at it until they find a body. But I mean, it's been over a decade. Like, you're probably not going to find the body. He most likely was able to dispose of it correctly. And now she's bones somewhere. We don't know.
We
don't know.
We don't know. So the police returned tons of collected evidence back to Sarah, which seems odd to me.
Or
And
keep
now
that in
they
storage.
right, like, and now they're telling her that the audio and videotapes that were confiscated because they were turned back over to her can't be used because she might have tampered with them. Are you fucking serious?
Right, you make a copy. If you're decided to give them all the evidence back to somebody, which is stupid, and you don't do that, you have an evidence locker for a fucking reason. You don't.
Are there not transcripts of what was on the tapes? Like, that is police work 101.
Well, right, and you can take a VHS and put it on a DVD, because now we're in 2010, 2011, or later.
Right.
Like you
right.
take the tape, you put it on a DVD, so you have the DVD forever. You put it on a flash drive and have the flash drive forever. You make copies. So much thing. You don't just pick, yep, here's all the evidence. We don't need it anymore because we're not going to do anything. Here's the evidence.
Yeah. We're going to totally tank your case if it ever happens.
And so then Sarah has directed the police to several locations that are suspected that Alissa might be, and they have refused to search. And here she gives us some insight on where Alissa's body could be found.
Yeah, no, there's reason to believe that Alissa could be in a few different areas. Unfortunately, I think that they're kind of open at the moment. But with a little more digging, we could narrow that down much more. And I specifically mean, the mall that was being built by our home. It was about a mile away. It was a place that we used to go ride our go-karts. And the thing with these construction sites is, because there's like a Target there and a Kohl's. It's a huge shopping center. It's one of those, big outdoor malls here in Arizona.
Sure.
And it was being built at that time. So what they do is they use ground penetrating radar to make sure that they're not digging into power lines or water lines or whatever.
Right.
But once those holes are dug and open, they don't look at them again. Nobody's 8 feet down digging under the dirt to make sure there's not a dead body under there.
Right.
So that was a huge opportunity, because the factor in Arizona, too, is the ground is so hard. It's not like soft, beautiful soil out here. Like, if you clawed at the ground with your nails, even acrylic nails, like, you would not get far. It's extremely difficult to dig here, and it would take hours and hours and hours to dig a grave. So an open hole is extremely convenient. It was so close and an area he was familiar with. So that's a huge lead, I believe. And the second is this annexed land in New River, which all we would have to do is cross-reference, which land was being annexed at that time and developed. Because it's not that large of an area. We could cross-reference the dates and narrow it down pretty well. Because my father makes dozens of phone calls to the city trying to figure out what they're doing with this random patch of desert.
So pretty much kind of more like, what are you guys doing over there? Getting close to where I buried it?
Exactly. He's like, what can they do with this type of land? What are they going to build there? Like, he goes insane and makes a ton of calls. So, I mean, let's just try to look for a body. Like, I'm not crazy over here. Like, we haven't even tried. If you want a body, let's look for it. But you saying I need a body and I won't look for it is unacceptable to me.
And when we heard this, we asked Sarah if it was possible to search on her own, as many people have done in other cases. And what she tells us is absolutely freaking shocking.
Even if we found Alissa's body, I could not tell you that 1,000% we get a conviction, because I don't know with them. It's like the flip of a coin, because they're so unpredictable and they don't always do the right thing or tell the truth.
I mean, that is just insane to me. So they're just basically telling her, that she's scared to go out and search on her own because they're telling her that, if you find this body, it could have been tampered with, blah, blah, blah. You could have done things to it. Like, are you serious? I just want my sister's case solved. That's all I want. And if you want to walk out here with me, then freaking come on. But can we please go search?
Right. And, the issue is that he made pipe bombs. Maybe he laced wherever he put her with bombs so that she would be destroyed and people looking for her would be killed.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
Right. So you don't know. And you just have her go search on her own, and then you still wouldn't believe her. If she starts digging and finds her, she could die because he may have tampered with the area where he put her. And then, we see this in some other cases where they know that there are bodies out there, but they won't search. And that if families need closure, people. It's not just like, well, they're gone, and if somebody finds them, decades later, then we find him then, but we're not going to directly go look. And it's like, no. People's
Right.
families and friends and coworkers and the community need some freaking closure.
The thing is this has ruined her life, okay? Not only is her sister dead, not only does she think her dad's a murderer and a rapist and a molester and a freaking, domestic terrorist, not only all of that, but her family has turned on her because of this, because they don't agree with how she's doing this. So, which is what she was told to do, but they don't think that it's right. And so she doesn't even have like a relationship with her family. So basically this is her whole life, is trying to find justice for her sister. It's just so fucking heartbreakingly sad. And so in closing out our interview with Sarah, I asked her, what do you think really happened that day? And her answer was just, so sad.
So what do you think really happened on that day, Sarah? I mean, if you were to really think back, what exactly do you think happened?
Yeah, I think it was premeditated. I think that he had this note and that he was waiting to use it because, again, we know that the note isn't from that day. At least the context and knowing that it was written on different days, of course, indicates that it was probably in existence before the day that she left. So, again, premeditated. I think that he knew that taking her out on the very last day of school would mean that a lot less people would be alarmed. Mm-hmm. When kids don't come back from summer break, it's a lot different than when a kid goes missing in the middle of the school year. Sure. There's no memorials or, assemblies in the auditorium.
Schools. Right. She just trained schools. Right.
Yeah. So again, the last day of school indicates that no one was going to notice. And we know that he picked her up early from school. Whether or not they got lunch or went back to the house, I have no idea. But I think that he took her out into the middle of the desert and tried to sexually assault her like he had done many times in the past, and that, on this day it went to a new level and, he took her life.
So do you think it was that part was maybe not planned, but the other part is what you're thinking?
I don't think that I can logically say that, right? Because it either all has to be planned or it doesn't. I think in the back of my head, I really wish that it was spontaneous because it would make him less of a monster. But I think it was very much planned.
Why then? And why then? I mean, what do you think was the triggering moment of, okay, it's time, I have to do this?
I think that there are a few different factors. She was becoming very, very close with her new boyfriend and his family. She was also becoming close with her friend Charity and her family, and she was telling these secrets to them. They knew about the sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. And, she was wanting to go live with my aunt and had expressed that before as well. I think that he knew that she was getting closer to 18, that she was telling the story to multiple people, and that he just couldn't have his secret come out. And it most certainly would by the time she turned 18. The biggest threat that he made to Alissa was, okay, if you tell people and you go to CPS, you and Sarah are going to be separated. You guys won't be a family anymore. They won't keep you together. But if she's 18, she's free to say that because we're separated anyway. She could even come back and get me out of the house at that point. He had tried to give us away so many times. There's no reason he wouldn't just give me to Alissa. So I think it was very much for that reason. And again, the last day of school because nobody would notice. And he had done that the year before, actually. He told the school that Alissa tried to run away on the last day of school, which was an absolute lie. So he had this, fixation with the last day of school, and I think that he just didn't want to wait until she turned 18. Her birthday was in April, and school ended in May. So this was his last time to get that last day of school factor. Again, just trying to raise as few alarm bells as possible. I think it's easier for cops to say, okay, it was the last day of school and, the kid ran away for the summer, she'll be back, as opposed to the middle of the school year, she's missing shifts, she had all these plans for the week. I think it's easier all around to get away with it.
Well, today, Sarah is ever vigilant in bringing justice for Alissa. She hosts her own podcast about it called Voices for Justice. In this podcast, she lays out the whole story. It's, it is long, it's continuing. Mm-hmm. So it is a lot of information, but she is obviously the one who has every piece of information.
Right.
She talks all about her dad, the police, and her sister. She also recently raised enough money to place a billboard for her sister in Arizona, asking, "Where is Alissa?"
She continues to take media engagements, even though, like we said, it has seriously destroyed her relationship with her brothers. They believe their father is the killer as well, but just don't think what she is doing is the right way to handle things. She continues to press the police and the district attorney to try this case. And it's so heartbreaking that Sarah has had her whole life consumed by this, and the people who are supposed to be there to help her are refusing. Please check out our podcast for more information. And if you'd like to help support her cause, we have some very special Justice for Alissa merchandise in our T Public store. We will be donating the profits to Sarah for her quest for justice.
I mean, it is just really sad that this is what she has to spend her whole life doing to try to get justice. And it's an amazing sacrifice for her to get justice. And there are a lot of families like her who have to do the same thing. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking because it shouldn't be on them to have to solve a case, especially when it's, your family member. How difficult that has to be, and emotionally confusing for her to know that her dad probably killed her sister and has hidden her body somewhere and was planning to kill a bunch of people, but she's the one who now has to solve her sister's disappearance and murder. And like I said, and like I said, I recently just kind of had that thought, like, what if he put bombs or weapons around the body? Like, so that way that evidence destroyed and the person who looked for her is dead. So then maybe there's no evidence left ever. And so if she starts to look and digs how she could be injured in this process, and that's why she needs the support of the local law enforcement and media attention, because it's dangerous for her and it's dangerous for the community. If there's construction workers who start digging and they find a bomb, it kills them. It is dangerous for this guy to have evidence put around that could potentially be damaging somebody. And he's out of jail, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's out.
He's out. Yep, and he continues to give like really cryptic messages and shit to her. Like, she talks about, Dad, are you ever going to tell me? And he's like, yeah, when I die on my deathbed, I'll tell you. Like, what makes that statement? It isn't guilty.
Yeah, messed up. It's messed up. So if you are, in the area or around the country, please listen to, Sarah. Please, bring some sort of media attention to this. Let people know that this is happening. She needs justice for her sister. The community needs justice. And this guy is out there, who knows what he's doing, if even involves Alissa anymore, if it's other people.
Right. Because he has been suspected of sexual misconduct with many other women, including his first wife's sister, his ex, just so many, like his sister-in-law. So, I mean, this guy is a sexual deviant and predator, and who knows what he's out there doing right now. And obviously, if what Alissa says is, if Alyssa's saying that he started around when she was 9, when her mother first died, I mean, he could be molesting children too. We don't know what this guy is doing. Yes. And obviously he's a very sick individual.
And dangerous.
Very dangerous. So you guys, next week, we will be starting on our mini series about the girls from the show Hell in the Heartland. There was also a book written that's coming out called Hell in the Heartland 2, and that is Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman. That's another crazy story. Those girls are still missing. Their parents were killed. I mean, it's just terribly heartbreaking. I know it's one that Colleen has been following quite emphatically. When she brought it to me, I was just astounded at how crazy it was. And we also did a podcast interview with Jax Miller, who is the person who wrote Hell in the Heartland and did the show. She's the investigator on the Hell in the Heartland show. She's amazing. And we'll be playing clips from that for you. And obviously, if you want to hear the whole thing, you'll have to go to our Patreon. But you'll hear a lot of what she has to say as we dive into this for the next couple of weeks. So keep coming back. Hey guys, so a couple nights ago, we launched a special campaign along with Cheryl McCollum from the Cold Case Research Institute called Love Wins. And what this is it is our answer to all the chaos that's kind of going on right now, the chaos from the riots, the chaos from all the different, pandemic, everything that's happening in our lives right now, all the issues with, the different lost lives that we've had from before the protesting, after the protesting. So all the lost lives that have come out of this, the lost lives of COVID even. And so hashtag love wins is a movement to usher in peace, and knowing that above all, the only way that we're going to get through all of this is loving each other. So what we're actually doing here is we are creating a scholarship fund in remembrance of all the lost lives in 2020 so far, and ushering in peace. And this scholarship fund will go to anyone that wants to go ahead and enter to win. The criteria is really cool. All you have to do is make a 30-second video of yourself and explaining to us how you lead with love. And we are looking for college-age students that are, struggling. Maybe they can't get scholarships. Maybe there's a reason, that they aren't available for them, or it's just not enough for them. And so this is our way of helping out. We're hoping to raise about $5,000. If we raise more than that, then we'll look into giving more than one scholarship away. The way that we're doing this is we have some merchandise. It's hashtag love wins merchandise. And there's also lead with love merchandise. They've got shirts, cups, mugs, stickers, anything you could possibly want. And we're going to have it on a couple different platforms. Currently, we're doing some on TeePublic, but I'm working on some on Cafe Press too, because they have a lot more variety of merchandise. And so we'll be donating a portion of the proceeds that we collect on this merchandise to the scholarship fund that we are creating. And then we also have a GoFundMe that will be listed in the show notes of our YouTube show and our podcast. And you guys can click on it and you can donate any amount you'd like. And all of the proceeds from that are going to go ahead and go to the scholarship fund. And we'll be showing you exactly how the money is distributed, how it's collected. We're going to be very transparent with this. We're working with some amazing professionals that from like Cheryl from the Cold Case Institute, Stephen David Lampley from the Oliphant Institute, the leading death investigator, Joseph Scott Morgan. So we're working with all of them to really show how much love wins over everything and bringing peace to a country that we really need it right now. So that's what we're doing. And we're going to go ahead and play our entries at the top of every podcast and every YouTube until we choose a winner. And our special guests that we have each week, the different people that come on and are here with us, Cheryl and Stephen and Joseph, they'll all be a part of choosing that lucky winner or winners, depending on how much we end up getting donated. So I hope that you guys join us in hashtag love wins. And we hope that we get some really great entrants, because we really want to see how you lead with love. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives and Murder by Design.
Don't forget to join our Patreon member club to get exclusive mini episodes, inside documents and pictures from the case, live YouTube discussions, our exclusive discussion group on Facebook, and get some amazing Good Wives merch. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at truecrimewives.
And for more inside information, check out our podcast, The Good Wives Guide to True Crime, on any of your favorite podcast players. Have a good one from The Good Wives, serving up true crime one dish at a time.